It was a day late in the summer. By chance, or perhaps by fate, I encountered a teeny village in Wicheonmyeon, Gyeongsang. That day, I was walking slowly along the path leading toward Mountain Kumon-san. On both sides of the road, golden fields stretched out endlessly. The rice stalks, awaiting the harvest, bowed their head one by one, and the late summer breeze moved gently across that golden waves. I was clearly deep in the mountains, yet before my eyes, it felt as though a terrestrial ocean was shyly unfolding far in the distance. Mountain Kumon-san quietly embraced the cozy landscape. It was the exact image of rustic, nostalgic countryside charmed you might see on an old postcard. In that moment, a quiet echo stirred within my heart. Ah, I won't try living in a place like this. It was neither a calculated plan nor a firm resolution. It was simply a confession that stumbled out from the depths of my heart. The golden ocean of the mountain valley called me. Someone who had held the sea in his heart for a lifetime and anchored me right there. Back then, I didn't know. I didn't know that those casual words would bring me back to this village. A few months later, I found myself back in the Sangcheon village. This time, it wasn't just for a brief look around. It was to truly live here. The seasons had changed in the meantime, and the golden field had already been harvested. The abundant rice stalks were gone, leaving only the cleanly cut stubble sitting quietly in the open dirt. When the brilliance of summer had passed, a stillness waiting winter now lingered. Before I knew it, the sunlight had grown faint, and the breeze, cool, almost cold, brushed against my cheeks. Yet strangely, I found myself drawn even more to that desolate landscape. The unrefined appearance, the somewhat rugged scenery, and unadorned way of life. These were the scenes rarely found in the city, woven into every corner of the village. In the yard of one house stood an old persimmon tree. A bright orange persimmons was still hanging from it, but no one was picking them. The children had already left for the city, and in the yard where only an old couples remained, the persimmons broke and fell as if letting go of themselves. Only the cold wind passed endlessly through the bare branches. Perhaps people grow to resemble those trees. In our youth, we live fiercely, parting false leaves, only to face quiet season of letting go one day. The empty house of the village was the same. In-house where people had departed, the faded color on the gate break off like rust from a bygone time. Yet the nature still lingered among those lonely homes. In the empty yard where the children had gone, flowers blossomed alone, grass grew, persimmon ripened, and soon snow fell in abundance. Even when the human time seems to stand still, nature was always quietly doing its work. As if offering comfort to the harsh life, whispering, "It's all okay." Sangcheon village was aging gracefully and naturally with the passing of the seasons. And I too step by step was escaping the breathless pace of city time and entered the deep, slow rhythm of the mountain valley. If we walk just a little way out from Sangcheon village, a vast expanse of the field called Seodok-dil unfolded. When I first stepped into the place, I was genuinely surprised. The broad field stretched endlessly in every direction, yet there was not a single utility pole obstructing the view. The Paris remains as Paris, as the water as water, and the soil as soil, each retaining its own true inherent color. As summer arrived, the rice stalks grew greener by day, as if competing to see who could grow faster. The emerald fields deepened their shadows day by day, and finally, when autumn arrived, the rice all began to bow their head. Strangely, the rice in Subdoctor looks a little bit different. It didn't feel as though they were bowing out of humility. Rather, it felt as though they were bowing with confidence. In the purest cradle of nature, they seemed proud of how properly they had ripened. I thought it was perfectly fine for that rice to be a little proud. The rice grown here in Sodokdal was, to me, the most delicious nourishment for the soul in entire world. Living here, I came to realize this for the first time. I learned with my whole body that every single variety of rice possesses its own distinct taste and aroma. A good bowl of rice is not merely a matter of culinary skill, it is a masterpiece born from the harmony of the finest nature and the scenery, the life-giving water flowing down from the belly of the mountain Kumonsan, the pristine soil that endured the harsh season, the brilliant sunlight, and the wind. The entire universe was fully present with a single grain of rice. At night, the field transformed into another world entirely. As the sun began to set, the progress began their chorus as if they had been waiting for the exact moment. Gaggle, 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 gaggle. As if a massive audition or a grand choral competition were taking place. They cried out in their own individualism, yet eventually blended into a beautiful singular harmony. When I would go out for an evening stroll after dinner, our little dog Bom, unable to contain his fierce temper, would bark along, woo, woo, and as if startled, the pogo would instantly plunge into total silence. But soon enough, they would resume their gaggle, gaggle, gaggle song, and the Bom boys would naturally drift into the rhythm of that great chorus once again. Sounds that had initially felt merely loud gradually became familiar to my ears, and the familiar turned into a strange sense of comfort. And that comfort led to deeper sleep in all my life. I had, ne- I had never once imagined that the cry of the progress could serve as a natural sleeping pill. But here in Sangchon village, it was a daily reality. With the evening and the morning, melodies graciously gifted by the nature resting right by my pillow. I fell into a peaceful sleep every night and welcomed each new morning. The season of the Sangchon village flows by slowly, never rushing. The field shifts colors, the mountain deepens its expressions, and the sky greets me with a different face every day. And in the midst of that tranquil times, I was writing a book. The title of the book was Badang is Not There. Badang is the Jeju word for ocean. It was a story about that very sea. Looking back now, it was truly strange and paradoxical thing. I was in this deep mountain valley writing about the ocean, the very thing to which I had dedicated much of my life. When I opened the window, the blue sea was nowhere to be seen. The crashing of waves could not be heard, and there was no salty sea breeze. Instead, what filled the room was the crisp sound of the valley wind, the songs of the mountain birds, and the faint distant hum of the farming machinery. At first, this disconnect felt a bit foreign, but soon realized something. If you are not too close to the ocean, you might not be able to truly look at it. Just, just as you cannot see the entire shape of the vast sea when you are trapped in the middle of it. By staying in the mountain, I finally began to gaze at the ocean from an honest, deliberate distance. The ocean of my memory, the ocean I live, that breaths in, the ocean humans have endlessly exploited, and the ocean of today, the changing under its wounds. In the stillness of the mountain, I could confront all the landscape with a calmer, more objective eyes. The mountain possesses a strange power. They do not hand the human clear-cut answer, but they make the question we ask ourselves much deeper and heavier. Gazing at the endless field, I would suddenly think of the providence of the Mother Nature. Looking at the majestic reach of the mountain Kumonsan, I would reflect on the rightful relation between humanity and earth. Following that thread, I realized that all of nature is ultimately one. The mountain are nature, the field are nature's, and the ocean too is the best manifestation of nature. I was writing about the ocean, but perhaps I was sitting and writing about nature itself and the human living within it. Of course, there was many more days when the writing did not flow easily. There was countless days when I sat agonizing over a single page of all day long. One some days thought would chase their own trails, then the tail of thought would grow so long that I would lose sight of core essence entirely. On those days, I had dropped everything and stopped my pen. When I grew confused about what I was even writing, whether I was writing about the ocean, about the humanity, or about myself, I realized that the following the sentence eventually forces you to face your most naked self. People believe that the author writes the book, but in reality, it may be the writing that uncovered and writes the author's inner self. For me, the process of confrontation was heavy at times, and on the certain days, my own interior self weighed on my shoulder more heavily than the stored manuscripts. Whenever my writing stalled, I headed for the mountain Kumonsan. As time passed, no special resolution or determination was needed. My pen moved toward the mountain first, as if fulfilling a long-standing promise. The path from my house to the locked body trial took about an hour. That chore was not merely time spent moving my body. It was time for the complex soul to settle, for sketched mind to find order, and a time of restoration to return to my true self. Incredibly, the mountain fast greeted me with a completely different face each season. When the spring arrived, cherry blossom bloomed in profusion. I'd seen countless cherry blossom in Jeju and in the bustling city, but the blossom at the front of the mountain Kumonsan felt entirely different. They bloom as if this, this were the absolutely final moment of their lives. Without sparing a single petal, they poured out everything they had, blooming vividly and detachedly. There was the true face of nature. And then the bees, another part of nature, was flying, humming piously as if playing a grand orchestral movement. It felt like a theme song praising that sacred living space. Cherry blossom are merely pretty, but they lack the bees.
안녕하세요.
On the
오랜만입니다.
cherry blossom path of the
예,
mountain Kumonsan, however, the layer of
감사합니다.
nature's ecology were, vibrantly arrived. When summer came, the dense greenery covered the path like a tunnel, making everything cool and refreshing, while damping humidity gently over the summer sea. The grief's energy of the mountain pass wrapped around my entire body here. One day I was walking, I saw a snake coiled up on the edge of the asphalt, taking a break. It must have been his own unique way of escaping the heat. Even when he sensed my presence, he wasn't startled at all. Instead, he stared at me intently, as if asking, "This is originally my sport. What is it to you?" When the autumn arrived, the mountain offered a different, deeper sound. Chug, chug. From somewhere, the sound of the rippling chestnut paling broke the silence. I had always thought autumn arrives quietly without the footsteps, but the autumn of the mountain Kumonsan made its presence known with this honest sound. The sound of time leaving, the sound of the season finally reaching completion, fell carelessly into the earth. And winter, I experienced a winter so fiercely cold for the first time since my discharging from the military. The piped froze, the sink froze, and even the water in the toilet turned to solid ice. When I reop- when I opened my eyes in the morning, I felt as though everything in the world had been paused. Yet, as noon approached, the warm sunlight would gradually drape over the mountain ridges. Then the frozen streams would soon begin to flow, again with a clear, bright sound. Most people only visit the mountain when the weather is fine, but I climbed the mountain pass without fail, even on days when the blizzard raged fiercely. The path was slippery, and my feet kept sinking into the deep snow. The biting gale whipping violently against my face was akin to a surge. At times, I had to hunch my body completely and practically crawled my way up. Yet strangely, I didn't dislike those growing moments at all. Rather, a surging sense of happiness washed over me. When white snow piled up layer upon layer on my beanie, I felt as though I had become a companion to another small mountain, carrying it on my head. In that way, step by step, threading on passing time, stepping through the changing seasons, I climbed slowly. Even after returning from the mountain, the act of writing remained difficult, but the air was distinctly different. The urgency in my heart had eased. Looking back, what shaped me was not a grand enlightenment. It was not a miracle bestowed by the Buddha. It was simply that path that I walked silently for an hour every day. The rugged mountain path I climbed and down while pacing the changing seasons with my whole body, and the daily habit of come back to sit at my desk and hold my pen. Perhaps what keeps a person alive and moving forward is not a grand ideology, but the power of small, simply daily routines. And on that solid path, I was gradually working toward the completion of Padang is not there. One day, I finally typed the very last sentence. It was the end of the manuscript that had held and wrestled with my soul for incredibly long time. Staring at the blinking cursor on the screen, I couldn't utter a word for a long while. My heart swelled with a joy and relief. It felt as though I had finally finished and handed in a massive lifelong homework assignment. Soon after, a bittersweet emptiness crept into a corner of my chest. It was the feeling that a deep past I had worked for so long, sharing joys and sorrow, had come to an end here. In that way, my collection of essays, Badang is Not There, was born into the world. It was a book about the ocean, a book about humanity, and ultimately a book filled with the honest desire to transcend the civilization we have built and return to pure nature. When I first entered this cozy village of Sangcheon, I believed that the successfully completing this book was my sole, absolute goal of my life. Yet looking back now, that the manuscript is finished, I realized that throughout every single moment of writing, the village's landscape was quietly staying my side. The golden field, the glowing sunset, the smoke rising from the chimney on the winter mornings, and across the prog, the persimmons falling mindlessly beneath tree, and the mountain pass of the Kumonsan, all of the great nature was silently cheering me on. On that path, I also met precious people, sitting down with the warm-hearted villagers to share a meal, laughing over the simple stories, sometimes debating passionately, and even giving lecture to the share my own stories. So the manuscript was written alone in my room. That cozy time was by no means created by my strength alone. There are always the warm villagers, the honest regions, the heavy mountain, and the wide field keeping me company. And above all, there was the rage of time that quietly waited for my impatience self. The time in Sangchan village did not flow like a city time. It never rushed. Nature always lived honestly, moving at its own pace without resistance. Only after entering this mountain valley did I finally learn how to breathe slowly and live. Or perhaps I finally remembered the precious essence of life that I had forgotten for so long amidst the business. Thus I gained the visions to truly appreciate the small, ordinary things currently held in my hand. Tangchon village taught me that the great truth, without uttering a single word, without forcing anything upon me, simply through the generosity of the remaining quiet in that place for ages. So, looking back now, the great gift I received from this village was not merely a single book. A heart that thinks a little more slowly, and deeply a gaze that look at the world a bit more tenderness, and an attitude of bowing one's head with humility before the magnificent nature. There is a true gift of the life passes down to me from the village of the Sangchon. Time has passed, and I have now left the beloved village of Sangchon. Yet it is a strange thing. Though my body was departed, the scenery of the small village remains vibrantly alive deep within my heart. On days when it rained, the delightful song of the crows that used to fill the field suddenly echoes in my ear. On days when the cold wind blew, the snow winter morning of the mountain valley quietly come to mind. And when my heart is weary, the majestic view of the mountain Kumonsan that I used to gaze at from before the rock-cut bodies Buddha trial suddenly fills me with a longing, bringing a lump to my throat. Then I feel a quiet itch in my feet to walk that path once again. Thinking back, I didn't just complete a single book in that quiet mountain valley. Following the embrace of that honest nature, perhaps I was gradually completing my own incomplete self. The ocean where I spent my life will always remain the home of my soul, but now a deep, solid mountain had also taken a heavy place inside me. And now that ocean and that mountain hold hands within me, quietly watching over and protecting me. There are things in this world where the process of reaching a destination is far more beautiful and precious than the result of itself. My time spent in the Sangchon village was precisely that. Perhaps life is not a story of grand achievement and accomplishment, but rather a story of what kind of warm landscapes we carry inside our heart as we live on. On a day late in summer, I met a Sangchon village by chance, and there, after long labor, I brought a book to completion. But now, I know with absolute certainty what that beautiful village truly handed to me was not a book printed on paper, but another deep eye with which to look at the remainder of my life uprightly. And so, even from afar, I quietly hope and give thanks today. May that gracefully aging Sangchon village always nurture green, useful thoughts in those who stay there. To the place that willingly let my restless self stay, that allow me to walk the path of deep contemplation, and that finally shape me into a human being a little close to my true self. I bow my head and offer my deep gratitude. Thank you.